Hi friends, it's Tammy from the Pine River Public Library. Welcome to Storytime. Today we're going to be reading a couple of stories about apples, and then we will be doing a fun apple craft. I'm really excited about doing this craft with you today. It's a 3D paper apple craft, and it's really fun. Okay, we'll get started with our stories. This first one is called Apple Picking Day. In the morning, we leave town, drive past woods, all gold and brown. Over hilltops, big and small, I see apples. Hello, fall. Tractor takes us to the trees. I spot ladders in the leaves. Run down this row, follow me. Lots of apples on that tree. I pick high, you pick low. In our basket, apples go. Hungry blue jay flaps and hops. Jabs a bad one, down it drops. Share an apple? Hey, my turn. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Yuck, a worm. See that apple way up there? On my tiptoes, I grab air. I try again. Down come two. One for me and one for you. Boy in that tree makes a face. Quick, pick faster. Start a race. Tractor pulls us to the shed. We sort apples, green and red. Apple cider, apple pie, apple donuts, hot and fried. Fun day over. We love fall. Yummy apples, best of all. All right, that's our story, Apple Picking Day. I have one more story for you and a riddle. The story is called Apple Orchard Riddle. The kids in Mr. Tiffin's class were going on a field trip. Hurry up, Tara, said Robert. You'll miss the bus. Tara took a seat by herself next to the window. She liked to look outside and wonder about things. Tara's in dreamland again, said Anna. The lights are on, but nobody's home, said Eleanor. Tara didn't hear them. She was too busy daydreaming. When they got to the apple orchard, everybody hurried off the bus. Everybody except Tara. Tara walked off slowly. It takes me a while to do more. It takes me a little more time to do things, she said. Yes, I've noticed, said Mr. Tiffin. The class gathered around the orchard's owner, Farmer Hills. Today, she said, we're going to take a tour of the orchard. We'll see how apples are picked and how cider is pressed. We'll watch apples get peeled by a special machine, and we'll pick some apples off the trees. Plus, I have a riddle for you to solve, said Mr. Tiffin. What's the riddle? Asked Charlie. Mr. Tiffin said, Show me a little red house with no windows and no door, but with a star inside. That's it, said Jake. That's the riddle? That's the riddle, said Mr. Tiffin. Your job is to find the answer. How are we going to have time to figure this out? Well, we also have to learn about apples, asked Molly. Are you sure this is fair? Yes, I'm sure, said Mr. Tiffin. I'm not very good at tests, Tara said. That's lucky because this is not a test, said Mr. Tiffin. The class walked along the path, lined with trees, stretching away as far as they could see. We grow 20 varieties of apples here, Farmer Hills said. Who can name some apple varieties? Macintosh, said Alex. Granny Smith, said Jeremy. Crispin, Fuji, Gala, Red Delicious, Golden Delicious. Thank you, Eleanor, said Mr. Tiffin. Our varieties ripen at different times, so we pick them from late summer to early fall, said Farmer Hills. These pointy ladders are what we use to pick the apples off the highest branches. I'm so tall I probably won't need a ladder, said Robert. Probably not, said Farmer Hills. These branches are so low we can all reach, said Charlie. That's right, said Farmer Hills. Only pick apples off the trees, not the ground, she added. To pick an apple, twist the stem till the fruit comes off the branch. She showed the class how to do it and gave them a small bag for holding apples. They twisted and picked till their bags were full. Tara didn't pick any apples. Instead, she sat under a tree and looked at the sky. "What was that riddle again?" she asked. "Show me a little red house with no windows and no door, but with a star inside," said Eleanor, who was good at tests. There was an apple on the branch right above Tara's head. Tara twisted it off. "This is red," she said. Farmer Hills showed the class where the apples were stored. "We keep the apples cold and fresh in the storage barn," she said. "That way folks can enjoy them all year round." Jake noticed something about the building. "A red house," said Jake. "And look, no windows." "But it has 2 doors," said Anna. "And Farmer Hills just said it had apples inside, not stars," said Eleanor. "So this is not the answer to the riddle?" said Jake. "Correct," said Eleanor. Tara wasn't looking at the barn. She was looking at her apple. She saw a tiny worm burrowing into it. "Hey, look who lives here," she said. "Yuck, don't eat that one," said Robert. "I won't," said Tara. She laid the wormy apple carefully onto the ground. Mr. Tiffin tossed her apple out of his bag, and she took a bite. At the cider press, Farmer Hills put on a raincoat and a hat before she got close to the machine. "Making cider must be a messy business," said Mr. Tiffin. "And noisy, too," said Farmer Hills. The class watched as freshly washed apples traveled up the chute to get chopped into tiny pieces. "This is called pulp," said Farmer Hills. "Pulp," said Eleanor. "Nice word." Next, a farmhand used a hose to spray the pulp into canvas sheets. "Cool," said Jeremy. Finally, the sheets of pulp were pressed down hard. "The juice flows through these sheets into a hose," said Farmer Hills. "Then it gets pumped into a big metal tank for one last treatment." "And then it's cider?" asked Charlie. "Then it's sterilized, and then it's cider," said Farmer Hills. Robert spotted an old tractor as they walked across the farmyard. The tractor was red with rust. "Hey," he called, "this tractor doesn't have a window or a door." Alex and Charlie ran over. "That's because it's a tractor, not a house," said Alex. "It could be a house for mice," said Charlie. "Mice sometimes live in a tractor seat." Alex and Charlie and Robert poked around the seat, but there were no mice. "Maybe there's a star inside," said Alex. Robert and Charlie looked all over the tractor. It had a steering wheel and gas gauge and a couple of pedals, but no star, said Charlie. The apple peeler was the next stop. We use the peeled apples for pies and cakes, said Farmer Hills. She turned the machine on. It peeled each apple in the blink of an eye. "Whoa," said Jeremy. "That's fast. Do it again." Molly and Kimmy peered into the machine, but they did not get too close. "It's sort of red," said Kimmy, "even though it's a little silver. And there are definitely no windows," said Molly. "No door either," said Jeremy. "So we win!" "Yeah, but where's the star?" Kimmy asked. The three of them watched as the machine peeled the apples one after another. "No star here," said Kimmy. At the end of the tour, Farmer Hills took the class to the farm stand. "Help yourselves to a cup of apple cider and a cider donut," she said. "Just one each," said Mr. Tiffin. "But Tara's not eating hers," said Jake. Tara was still munching on the core of her apple. "Aren't you done with that yet?" said Robert. "Not yet," said Tara. She chewed every last bit of it till she got to the seeds. 5 seeds, she said. Just then, Mr. Tiffin looked at his watch. "Hey, class," he called. "The bus will be here soon. Let's talk about what we learned today." "We learned that apples come in lots of different varieties," said Molly. "Cider presses make lots of noise," said Jeremy. "Donuts are yummy," said Jake. "How about the riddle?" said Mr. Tiffin. "There doesn't seem to be an answer," said Eleanor. "I told you it was no fair," said Molly. Tara walked over to Mr. Tiffin. She had 5 apple seeds in one hand and a round red apple in another. She handed Mr. Tiffin the apple. "This is a little red house with no windows and no door," said Tara. "That's not a house," said Jake. "It is if you're a worm," said Tara. Mr. Tiffin smiled at Tara. "Go on," he said. "I think there's a star in this apple," said Tara, "where nobody can see it." "If nobody can see it, who cares?" said Robert. "I care," said Mr. Tiffin. "Let's take a look." The class gathered round. Mr. Tiffin took the apple out of Tara's hand. "Where's the hidden star?" he asked. "You'll see it if you cut this way, right across the middle," said Tara. Mr. Tiffin borrowed a small knife from the farmer. He cut the apple in half. Right across the middle. When he pulled the apple apart, the class could see its 5-pointed star. "Hey, Tara was right," said Molly. Just then the bus rambled down the lane. "Let's give a cheer for Farmer Hill's class," said Mr. Tiffin. And they did. "The donuts were great," Jake shouted. The class grabbed their jackets and bags and ran to go home. "Come on, Tara," said Mr. Tiffin. When she got on the bus, Tara chose a seat by herself. She took a bite of an apple with a star inside. Then she looked out the window so she could daydream a little more. All right, there's our book, The Apple Orchard. All right. We are going to start our paper apple craft. Now, what you will need is, if you have your kit, you will get 2 apple templates, which you can color the apples and cut them out. You will need a pair of scissors. There should be a stick of glue in your kit, and you will need some coloring supplies, markers or coloring crayons or colored pencils. So the first step is going to be to color your fruits, if you would like to color your fruits. You'll color all 8 of them, and you'll see a stem and a flower on the bottom. You can color them too if you would like. So go ahead and color your fruits first. Mine are already colored, so the next step after your fruits are colored is to cut your fruits out. And I have most of mine cut, but I need to finish my very last one. So we're going to cut this out. Just cut right along the outside of the fruit. All right, once all of your apple pieces are cut out, the next step will be to fold them in half, making sure that the color is in the center. So you're going to fold them in half and do that to every single one of your apple pieces. Just fold them in half. Keep the color in the center, the white on the outside. Once they're all folded, then it will be time to glue. Okay, you should have 8 apple pieces, all folded in half. Now it's time to glue them. What you're going to do is just stack them up. Stack them right on top of each other. But we're going to put a bit of glue on each one as we stack. Looks like I need to come down just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay. So I'm just gluing and stacking. I'm going to glue and stack them up. Glue, stack them up. Doesn't take too long. It's pretty quick to just glue and stack them all up. Okay, on the last one, you're going to glue, and then you're going to bring it around and glue it right to your first piece. So you'll just close them up. And ta-da! We have our 3D apple craft. Now, it'll be time to glue on your stem and your leaf if you would like, which I did in the first one that I did. All right, have fun with your 3D apple crafts. We will see you next story time. Bye-bye.